It seems like your character is equally divided between advancement for advancement's sake and it's at some point it seems like your character, no matter what setting he's in, wants to advance up the ladder.
I wouldn't say that's true.
Okay.
I would say he believes in protecting his family at all costs.
Okay.
I don't think he has a sense of advancing up the ladder for the sake of advancing up the ladder.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Something I saw in there, but do you think that perhaps he, in his desire to protect his family, he'll thrive in any environment he's thrust into if the ultimate end is the preservation of his family?
I don't know. I mean, what I try to steer away from is the idea that he is like an evil person, and there are certain aspects of his personality that will push him towards a certain type of personality behaviour, irrespective of his environment. I don't think so. I think the key to him, what's interesting to me about playing him, is that he's a man who has many, many good qualities, many dangerous qualities, like a human being. And he's a good case study for Nazism, because as far as I'm concerned, if you read your history, well, you don't even need to read your history. Nazism started by a small group of really corrupt, really twisted people, and it spread until it took over an entire country.
Yeah.
And the entire country was not evil people. They were not all predisposed to evil any more than anyone else. However, it took hold. Not only that, it took hold everywhere else. There were people in America who were pro-Nazi. So the idea that's interesting for me is that people find the narrative to convince themselves that what they're doing is good and right. And he is one of those people who, in a different history, had worked out a different way until the Nazis dropped the nuclear warhead on Washington in 1941. He was a good soldier for the American side, and never showed any predisposition towards children, particularly racist, but ended up in a society where those elements were eked out of him and the others were suppressed. And I believe that he's this kind of like the dark version of the everyday.
Okay. He does have those sort of 50s sitcom dad qualities to him, of wanting to sort of keep the nuclear 1950s family intact. And
yeah, I'm not agreeing with much of that. I mean, that again is a kind of thing, a danger of it, I think, especially if you look at the very first setting, and sometimes the costumes and sometimes the music would make it seem as though, and I quite like the stylization of it, in that I suppose there's a kind of kitschiness to the idea of the all-American dad. However, I think the actual person and the family is far more nuanced and real than that. You can take that snapshot of the 50s all-American dad, the kind of TV sitcom version, but when you look closer, it's actually a family with all sorts of conflicts, problems, darkness and light. So that's the cover photo. So to speak, but that's not the truth.
It's a very interesting program. I like the nuances that your character.
Yeah, I mean, and what you pick up, and I agree with what you said. That's like the snapshot. And what's interesting for me is going past that snapshot.
Yeah.
It's like the photo of the all-American father knows best girl. But just like in real life, peel back behind that, then you actually have a real problem. I was against the idea of, in order to make some kind of dramatically ironic point, that we were in all other respects a cheesy American family.
Yeah.
For me, in all other respects, we were a real family. That's where it becomes interesting.
Okay.
How to get past that. And I think in season 2 we're going deeper into it, realising just because it's witty almost to make the statement that otherwise we're a perfect TV family.
Yeah.
No, otherwise we're a real family, which is far more deadly as a truth to look at.
Yeah.
Because it's closer to the truth.
Okay.
This is what Nazis were made of, a real family.
After, just kind of go back, he's spent all this time trying to prove now that he is the perfect Nazi soldier, but at the end of sort of the season, he finds out what's going on with his son, and he's starting to have to look at everything that he's done to get himself to that position. Is he going to be questioning more about...
I think, if you looked at episode 6, I don't think it's the first time he's questioned. I think his close friend Wagner, and the story is that they were drafted in to help on one of the camps when they were soldiers early on, and they didn't know what was going on, and they discovered. And it was, I think, equally horrifying and shocking and seismically disturbing for both of them. And they both dealt with it different ways. One by rejecting, and the other by holding the mask ever closer. I think that's what he's done. I think it's not the first time he's had doubts, but his way of dealing is by driving on. Because if he admits that it was wrong, if he admits that it's a lie, if he admits, then his whole thing crumbles. So I think that can make people quite dangerous.
Moving into season...
It's like, the ones who end up... a guilty conscience can make someone very vehement in their beliefs. It makes for the worst type of fundamentalist religiosity. It comes from people who feel bad about Christ and their conscience.
You seem like you did a lot of prep work for the show. You're very much in the mindset of the character. You know how it works on a deep, intuitive level. So I'm curious what steps you went through.
Well, I try to put myself in the mindset not of a Nazi but of a human being. Because what actually happens, I would notice, for example, that day players would come in to play American Nazis and they would automatically start speaking like this. Their body language would you automatically want to pull on your fingers one glove at a time. A lot of these signifiers of Germanic evil would automatically happen to the performers. And we all do that without thinking. So as soon as you're playing a Nazi, there's certain things, if you want your granny to think you're a good actor, you act like a Nazi. I wanted whoever that granny figure was to think I got it wrong. Because I failed. But in reality, what was interesting to me is what made them everything other than if you take the most interesting thing about any person is everything except the uniform. The thing that makes them a person. You know what makes a nurse a nurse? It's their job. What is it that makes them a human being? And I read, as soon as I found out my character wasn't in A Man in the Castle, I thought, well, I won't read that yet. I read, first of all, The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich, which was the history, very famous history of how it happened. And I discovered a lot of very interesting things. That, when you ask yourself, what would I have done? And surely I would not have been a Nazi. Hitler said something very, very terrifying about people who questioned the validity of Nazism. He said, I don't worry about these people. I have their sons, I have their daughters, I have their sisters, I have their mothers, I have their wives. That is very, very, very chilling. You think you're a lone person, but you lose everything you have. You lose your family, you lose the people that you love. Everyone just caved in, And for me, it was about trying to find the mindset of the people who believed they were in Germany at that time. Closed off all access to media from the rest of the world, so they believed in themselves as the victims. Victim mentality, which is not unfamiliar to us. The idea that they were besieged, attacked, under threat by all these outside dark forces. So Poland, Czechoslovakia, was finally striking back out to protect themselves. And everyone believed that. Finally, they were right there to nasty old Britain. Everyone believed that they were finally looking out for themselves after years of abuse. That's fascinating when you discover that. So they weren't thinking, we're the bad guys, he. So that was fascinating to me. And then I read Albert Speer, who was his right-hand man, his architect, then his armaments minister, who was not an anti-Semite, was an intellectual, talking about because he was the one that survived. He was sent to Spandau because he wasn't involved in the final solution. But he talks about the moment he realised, on reflection, that he gave his soul away. And someone said to him, he didn't know about the Jews being killed. Someone said to him, by the way, Albert, someone high up in the road, if anyone ever asks you to visit a place called Auschwitz, don't go. And he said, okay, and he never mentioned it again, he never asked anyone again, and he never asked him. And from that moment, he realised he was implicated, because he decided when the point to look away was. And that is how Nazis are made. So you decide what you don't see.
Is that, and there are other people were sort of looking out for his ideals and being like, well, he can't find out about that, so let's tell him just don't.
No, most of the people, people weren't as fluent with. People had an idea of what was going on. A lot of people didn't. They just chose to believe when they were told that the Nazis were going away, that the Jews were going away, that they were being sent away. They chose to ask no further questions. They chose to ask no further questions. For a similar reason, they had dark feelings about what answers they might get. That was the level of knowledge that a lot of people have. It's evil, but it's sucking.
You said that Obergruppenführer relies on a certain level of idealism to sort of motivate himself, like that he can.
He's tried to construct an idealism for himself, a story for himself, where he is a hero. It's sometimes shaken by self-doubt. Self-doubt can drive people on. That's my theory. I mean, what do I know? But these are the things I tell myself.
Well, I mean, your character's become is in many ways like a pillar, foundation of what's made the show. The show being able to see.
Well, I think he embodies the conflict.
Yeah,
of that.
exactly.
The confusing element of someone having a bit of dimension, but also being a listener. I think that's what's interesting about it.
It's at the core of the Nazi-occupied America is your character with that personal struggle of what.
It's no longer Nazi-occupied America.
Sure,
it's Nazi America. There's a difference. Japan is occupied and they're subjugated under the power of Japan. America has become Nazi. They welcomed them in. They fought for one. They've decided to join them. So, it's not Germans. These are Americans. That's what's funny. And there's the warning. Not that America's going to become Nazi, but these things are very subtle. The way people suddenly realise they have a set of beliefs and they don't know where they came from. They just have a feeling in their gut.
You look down.
When you are choosing whether it's television or film or theater, what is it that you look for in a character that interests you?
I don't know, it varies. I mean, to be perfectly honest, living in the real world, sometimes I hold out for the greatest part of the world, and and then you could be unemployed for a really, really long time. So for me, it just has to excite me. And for this, for example, when I read just the pilot, I wasn't interested, because in the pilot, he marches up and down corridors. He has 3 conversations. I think everyone he's talking to is hanging upside down by chains. So, there's not a lot of. I thought once I realised he'd been added to the script, I thought I'm not interested, especially anymore, having tried to make it work and failed. As far as I was playing just straight out bad guys. So I was going to say no, but then they showed me episode 2, which was the scene with his family, and the scene from his perspective being attacked. And I believed Frank Spotless when he told me that this was about someone who, in a different world, would have been a different guy, and you get to see the cracks in that, and then you get to see the conflict. It was that conflict, and I realised that all of my frustrations about being continually cast or people wanting me to play just bad guys, I could actually make my greatest argument against that by the way I played this, rather than just resent being offered this, I should take it and use it. So in that instance, it just varies, And after this, I did a thing called Victoria, which is going to be on Masterpiece in January, where I just play a really nice guy. And for me, I'd have liked that part at any point, but the attraction straight after this, for me, what it really does is it takes away the onus of this to be too much of a success or that, because between the two of them, I think it's a good calling card for whatever comes along.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.